All right, so we're going to start off. We've gone through all of the biotic and abiotic factors, all of the different things like predators, prey, scavengers, decomposers, producers, etc. that we know all of those words. Now, Malachi, we're going to look through this and we're going to see like how these are different in each of the different types of biomes that we're going to study. And the first we're going to start off with is the aquatic biomes. Now, aquatic, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is one of our vocabulary words for this week. What does aquatic mean? These are going to be all the biomes that have to do with water. Oceans, rivers, lakes, streams, ponds, bogs, marshes, etc. You are correct. Aquatic. All right, so while that video was playing, I wrote down like a few vocabulary words on the anchor chart. I wrote down aquatic, and aquatic means having to do with water. Now, Kyle, as we go through this, we're going to talk about three types of water: fresh water, salt water, and brackish water. From the video, we learned that fresh water is water with little or no salt. Salt water, has salt in it, right? No one should miss that. And then brackish water is one that we're going to see very often because we find that in estuaries, and it's going to have a fluctuating amount, a mix of salt and fresh water. And depending on the tides, it's either going to be very salty, or when the tide is out, it's going to be more fresh water. And again, if you're an animal that lives in the estuary, you have to have a very special adaptation to deal with the fluctuating, the changing of salt levels. So aquatic biomes have to do with water. So as we're talking about aquatic biomes, I want to talk about the largest biome that we will talk about at all, and that would be the ocean, also known as the marine biome. So if you happen to want to be a marine biologist, you are wanting to study the living things in the oceans. So marine biome is the largest biome. It is a saltwater biome, meaning that it has salt in it. Again, we've kind of joked about that, but I think that's the easiest vocabulary word we'll have all year. Saltwater, water with salt in it. It's pretty simple to do. So the marine biome is the first biome we're going to look at. Marine biomes have the most biodiversity. That means the amount of life, the different types of plants and animals that live there than any other type of biome, which makes complete sense because if it's the largest and it has the most animals and plants, that makes sense, right? I know you might think it would be the rainforest, but it actually is the ocean. You do not have to memorize all the 5 oceans. Matter of fact, if you're at home taking notes, you don't have to write down anything from this slide, really. That's just important facts. We do divide the ocean up into different regions from shallow to deep, but we're not going to have to memorize those now. And we do need to understand the wide variety of plants and animals, though. So if we're asking a question and it starts talking about sharks, jellyfish, and kelp, you do need to know that that comes from the ocean, which is very important. The marine biome. You'll see different numbers, 70 to 75, 74, 73, somewhere between 70 and 75% of the earth is covered by the oceans, right? So let's just say 3/4 of the earth is oceans. So that's the marine biome. Again, you do not have to remember that. They are very salty. There's about 1 cup of salt per gallon of water in the ocean. And if you've ever been knocked over by a wave at the ocean and opened your mouth by accident, you know how much salt is in that water. This is something that's amazing to me. There's over 1 million species of plants and animals discovered in the oceans, and they think that there might be as many as 9 million more that we haven't discovered. So if you want to go into something where we have not discovered the whole ocean. One very, very important thing about the ocean and one very important plant in the ocean is algae. This algae lives on top of the ocean because it's a plant and needs sunlight to go through photosynthesis. But what do plants give off that we all need? Oxygen. Okay, so 75% of the earth is covered with ocean water. Algae on top of that is constantly going through photosynthesis, releasing that oxygen that we need to breathe in. obviously that's something that's very, very important for us in the ocean biomes. So I see this slide and it gets me kind of excited because I think the next slide, or in the next couple of slides, is going to be a video from Nature Boom Time. Easily one of my favorite things that I talk about every year. I've gotten in contact with him about every year. Students have written letters. They've written letters and sent autographed things back to us, which is pretty cool. One type of marine algae is kelp. Kelp is important because it provides shelter and food. Do we need habitats for like fish to live in? Yes. It's also used by us for many things like toothpaste and ice cream. I know that sounds gross, but it is. Kelp is also very important, and you'll see this in some of the videos that we watch. It serves as a buffer. As all of those waves are moving back and forth, it does erode the shorelines of some places. However, a lot of these kelp, especially on the California coast, they really do take away a lot of that energy from the waves, which allows for the beaches to not erode, which is important. And we'll talk about that as we move on. Phytoplankton, those are very, very small. You have zooplankton and phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are very, very tiny animals, and they serve as the beginning of the food chain. Not a shock in here to anybody that think that plants are the beginning of the food chain, because we talked about that when we talked about food chains and the food pyramid. And again, some scientists estimate that phytoplankton and those algae and stuff provide the earth with almost half of its oxygen. Almost half of the oxygen in the earth is coming from that. So I think that's something very important to think about. And there is the video I was just talking about. Again, as we kind of roll through this really, really quickly, again, we've already said that the Earth's oceans are home to the planet's most biodiversity. You do need to know some of these. Do you need to know like all of the names? No, you don't have to memorize all the names, but you do need to know some of the animals and the plants that live in the ocean. Yes, ocean water is salty. It is saltier in other places than it is in some places. I guess depending on how much rain, how much fresh water might be running into the ocean at a certain point. If the ice caps happen to be melting in a place, that'll make the ocean less salty, and we'll move on from there. So I'm going to stop here at Coral Reef. If you're at home, well, my one person at home, Ellie, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe.